Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy, Boiled here, and I'm gonna be reacting to a video by The Richest called 10 Kids Who Grew Up in Prison. I've never seen this video, and yeah, let's just hop straight in. Turn up the volume.
Tough, muscular, tattooed, and also we assume they're old enough to drink. But you might be shocked at some of the very young people who ended up languishing behind bars before they were even old enough to drive. Don't get trapped in a prison of bad YouTube videos. To get the best, click subscribe and turn on your notifications. Curtis and Catherine Jones. It might send a chill up your spine to know that one of the youngest convicted killers has recently been set free. Curtis Jones was only 12 years old when he and his sister Catherine, who was only a year older, shot their father's girlfriend. After trying in vain to cover up their crime, the siblings fled but were later apprehended by police. Although their lives before their crime had been fraught with abuse, they were tried as adults and sentenced to 18 years in prison and a life of probation. Both siblings pleaded guilty, and thus there was no trial and no opportunity for the judge to consider the abuses that the children had suffered in their short lives. As he headed off to prison, young Curtis lamented that he wouldn't be able to bring his Nintendo with him. At the age of 30, Catherine was released after spending her teenage years behind bars. She married a Navy senior chief who she had met as a pen pal in prison. Curtis was recently released at the age of 29, having become an ordained minister while in prison. Catherine claimed that she is happy to be finally free, but Curtis declined to comment on his newfound freedom. Lionel Tate. Although the result of young Lionel Tate's actions was undeniably horrible, there are many who feel that his sentence was a gross miscarriage of justice. When he was 12 years old, Tate was playing with a young girl half his age who lost her life as a result of rough play with the older boy. Although he was an intelligent child, Tate had been in trouble numerous times before, and there was much debate over whether this was simply a tragic accident or not. The prosecution offered Tate a plea deal that would have meant serving a mere 3-year prison term. Shockingly, Tate and his mother turned it down in hopes of an acquittal. Instead, Tate became the youngest person in America to ever receive a sentence of life in prison with no possibility of parole. However, he got a second chance when the conviction was overturned when he was 17, and he went from spending his life in prison to 1 year's house arrest and a decade of probation. Just a couple of years later, when he was 19, Tate was arrested for armed robbery, a conviction which violated the terms of his probation. This time, he's looking at 30 years behind bars. Max McDougal. When you visualize kids in prison, you might think of young kids in jumpsuits with facial tattoos, but some of the youngest people living in prison have done nothing wrong. Little Max McDougal has grown up behind bars because of the crimes of his mother, Jacqueline McDougal. She was caught stealing silverware in order to support her drug habit.
Why didn't they give
him
or her to the father?
Max has lived his whole life behind bars with his mother. Although she and Max don't interact with the general population, it's still very much a prison. Despite having to bring up her son in prison, McDougal calls her sentence a blessing in disguise. She admits that she was going down a bad path in life, and ending up in jail was a wake-up call that she needed to get clean and change her lifestyle. Keeping a baby in prison with his mother costs taxpayers about $24,000 per year, but it also lowers the rate of the mother reoffending. And since each year in prison costs $30,000 for an adult inmate, many people believe it's a better idea to let children remain in prison with their mothers.
Leave him with the fathers.
Mary Bell. A little girl convicted of murder sounds frightening enough, but knowing that we have no idea where she is now or what name she goes by is haunting. Mary Bell was convicted of manslaughter for her role in the passing of two little boys,
she just wants to
Martin
cut my
Brown,
head
age
off.
4, and Brian Howe, age 3. These crimes were committed when Bell was 10 and 11 years old. Psychiatrists believe that she was a psychopath, and the judge called her a danger to other children. She was to be detained until further notice in the Red Bank Community Home, a place for children to be incarcerated. Although this place looked like a normal home, it was really anything but. Children adhere to rigid routines, must complete chores, and are completely detained within the building. Later, she was sent to an adult prison before her release. She was detained for 12 years total and was granted anonymity along with her freedom. This means that she was able to change her name and travel freely, reportedly having a daughter and later becoming a grandmother. Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser. This recent case made headlines due to the young age of the girls involved and the bizarre motive. On May 31st, 2014, three 12-year-old
She looks like a nice
friends,
person.
Peyton Leitner, Anissa Weier, and Morgan Geyser, were enjoying a game of hide-and-seek in a local park. Suddenly, the fun stopped when Weier and Geyser attacked Leitner with a knife before fleeing.
Why?
Thankfully, Leitner survived her injuries, and Weier and Geyser were arrested.
Why would they?
The girls claimed that they had been trying to kill their friend to appease the fictional character Slender Man. This creepy character is a result of a Photoshop contest, and both girls insist that they had to attack Leitner or he would have hurt their families. Needless to say, this has caused a lot of back and forth in courts as the girls' mental state
Because of Slender Man, one of your best friends?
For years now, the pair of girls have been incarcerated because it's believed they cannot safely live outside of prison.
Yeah,
If
that's
convicted,
correct.
they each face up to
They're
65
insane.
years in prison.
They're insane.
Despite not being tried yet, they will be in prison at least until their trials in the fall of 2017. Anisha Walker. During a difficult childhood in which she struggled to earn money to survive, 14-year-old Anisha Walker found herself selling drugs to stay afloat. One day, a drug deal went wrong and Walker ended up shooting a customer in the head. She was so young that the handcuffs kept slipping off her wrists as she headed off for her 35-year sentence. After being quarantined for a few weeks because of her young age, she was eventually let into general population. The guards had sympathy for the teenage girl, but she was still forced to work with the other inmates, picking and planting produce and moving rocks around in the field. Because of the years of hard labor, she now suffers from arthritis in her knees and hips. Walker claimed that the first decade in prison was the hardest, as she was still a rebellious teenager with a chip on her shoulder. Eventually, she realized that she was only hurting her chances of ever being released by being a troublemaker. She always dreamed of becoming a chef, but instead of learning to cook in the kitchen like other teens, she made treats using items from the prison commissary and her high-powered prison hairdryer. Christopher Hood. After being a victim of childhood
He looks like he has Down syndrome.
father and older relatives, 11-year-old
No offense.
Christopher Hood was arrested for assaulting two young girls.
Well,
As
okay,
part
now
of
I
his
don't feel
treatment
bad.
in lockup, he was forced to recite his crimes
11-year-old?
every day
Come on.
in front of the other inmates
You're better
in the
than
correctional
that.
facility. Many
That's
of
like
us were
6th
anxious
grade.
about speaking in front of our peers at school. Imagine having to discuss the worst thing you've ever done in front of your classmates every single day. Hood claims that in order to make it through the day, he shut down emotionally and became robotic in his feelings and actions. Now that he is an adult, Hood admits that he didn't learn the social skills that other kids take for granted when allowed to grow up outside of prison. He earned his GED behind bars at 16 and is eager to prove himself once he gets released from prison. Because he knows what it's like to be confined and abandoned, he hopes to find work with abused animals once he's free.
Okay.
Josh Phillips.
Just don't go
Josh
assaulting
Phillips was
people
only
anymore, you
14 years old when
pedophile.
he caused 8-year-old Maddie Clifton to lose her life. The case drew national attention, and Phillips was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He has appeared in many documentaries about this tragic case. Currently, Phillips has spent over half his life incarcerated for his crime. He began his incarceration at a maximum security prison at the young age of 14. And the only reason he did not have to contend with the death penalty was because he was under 16 years old. Despite being behind bars, Phillips believes in getting an education. He has just had to do so at a distance. He graduated from a distance learning program with a paralegal degree and works helping other inmates with their appeals while behind bars. In August 2017, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sentencing juveniles to life without parole is unconstitutional, and Phillips' sentence is currently being reviewed. Best case scenario for Phillips at this point would see him released from prison at the age of 55. The family of his victim is trying desperately to prevent his release. Joe Ligon. You would think that being imprisoned at such a young age would make someone desperate for freedom, but not Joseph Ligon. He has served 63 years in prison so far, beginning when he was only 15 years old. This makes him the oldest and longest surviving juvenile sentenced to life in prison. Ligon is one of 5 people who was involved in the murder of 2 people, and for his role he was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Murder
The
of
same
2
U.S.
people?
Supreme Court ruling that affected Josh Phillips affected Ligon as well, meaning that he could be eligible for parole immediately, considering how long he's been imprisoned. Shockingly, he declined the offer, claiming that he's been in prison long enough and he wants complete freedom or he's not interested. To Ligon, it was a matter of principle, and he didn't want to be let out only to be placed on parole or probation.
Yeah.
He hopes to work with a legal team that will let him out of prison with complete freedom. Nate Anderson. Compared to the life sentences many of the other people in this video received, it seems like Nate Anderson might get off easy after a mere 10 years in prison. At the age of
What'd he
15,
do?
Anderson shot his 29-year-old sister, Amanda Anderson, in the head.
Why?
He readily confessed to the crime and asked his parents for forgiveness, which they claimed to have given him. The family desperately wanted to avoid a trial in order to keep Anderson's motivation for his actions a secret. They got their wish, and Anderson limited himself to short one-word answers.
He looks like if I pissed him off, he'd shoot up the school.
His parents claim that although they forgive their son, they cannot forget his actions and wanted to get justice for their daughter. When he was 16 years old, Anderson was sentenced to 20 years in Texas State Prison, but will be eligible for parole after 10 years. During the 9 months between his arrest and sentencing, Anderson was left in solitary confinement as a safety precaution. Now he will be forced to live in general population at an adult prison. Do you think these kids deserve their sentences, or should they have gotten off easier?
Okay, some of them definitely deserve what they got. Some of them definitely don't. Well, no, not definitely don't. I just feel like they've proven themselves and they've been there for so long that maybe they could get out. But you know, some of them, like murdering your sister and murdering 2 females, or assaulting or raping them or something, not right. So anyways, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video, and peace. Oh shoot, my bad. And peace.